You're her emotional slave, and she can smell it. Every text asking how she feels about you, every question about where you stand, every moment you waited for her to tell you you're doing okay. You weren't being a good partner. You were being her property. And the sickest part, you paid her for the privilege of being owned. Let me show you exactly how this happened, and more importantly, how to break free before you lose yourself completely. Picture this. You just got promoted at work. Big raise, corner office, the thing you've been grinding for. And your first instinct, your first thought, I can't wait to tell her. I wonder what she'll say. I hope she's proud of me. Stop right there. In that moment, you just revealed something about yourself that would make Nietzsche physically sick. You accomplished something massive, something that affects your life, your career, your future. And your immediate response is to seek external validation from someone who had nothing to do with it. You turned your victory into her approval rating. That's not love. That's not partnership. That's slavery. Or how about this one? You're at the gym. You've been consistent for 3 months. You're seeing results, feeling strong. And then she makes a comment. You're spending a lot of time at the gym lately. Not even a criticism, just an observation. And what happens? Your mind starts racing. Is she upset? Does she think I'm neglecting her? Should I skip tomorrow? Maybe I should explain why fitness is important to me. Congratulations. You just handed her the remote control to your life. She pressed one button, a single sentence, and you're ready to abandon your goals, your discipline, your self-improvement, because you need her to approve of your choices. You need her permission to better yourself. That's not a relationship. That's a prison where you're both the guard and the inmate. Here's another one you'll recognize. You're out with your boys, having a good time, laughing, actually present in the moment, and your phone buzzes. It's her. And suddenly, everything changes. The conversation you were having becomes background noise. Your friends become irrelevant because you're analyzing her text, the tone, the punctuation. Was that period aggressive? Is she mad? Should you leave early? You just went from a man enjoying his life to an anxious teenager trying to decode signals from someone who probably just sent a random text and forgot about it 5 seconds later. But you'll think about it for the next 2 hours. You'll craft the perfect response. Delete it, rewrite it, read it out loud. All because you need her validation that you're allowed to have fun without her. Let me tell you what Machiavelli understood about power, and this is going to sting. He wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, but few can feel." What does that mean for you? It means she's not judging you by your intentions. She's judging you by what she observes. And what she observes when you seek her validation is weakness, uncertainty, a man who doesn't know his own value, a man who needs someone else to tell him he's okay. And that observation? It creates a biological response in her brain that you cannot negotiate with, cannot reason with, cannot fix with communication. Disgust, not because she's a bad person, but because attraction is not a choice. Think about the men throughout history that women obsessed over. The artists, the conquerors, the visionaries, Da Vinci, Napoleon, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. You think any of them stopped painting, stopped conquering, stopped building because a woman questioned their choices? You think Da Vinci looked at the Mona Lisa halfway through and thought, "But what will she think of this?" Hell no. They were so consumed by their mission, so locked into their purpose, that female approval was irrelevant. Not because they didn't care about women, but because they cared about their work more. And that energy, that singular focus on something greater than a relationship, that's what created attraction. Not the validation seeking, not the checking in, the absolute indifference to her opinion about their life's purpose. Now here's where this gets really uncomfortable, and I need you to stay with me because this is the part that will actually set you free. You don't have a validation problem. You have an identity problem. You're seeking her validation because you don't have a strong enough sense of who you are without her input. You've outsourced your self-worth. You've made her the judge, the jury, and the executioner of your value as a man. And she never asked for that role. In fact, she doesn't want that role. Because the moment she becomes your source of validation, she stops being able to respect you. You can't look up to someone who's looking up to you for permission to feel good about themselves. Nietzsche called this master morality versus slave morality. And your validation-seeking behavior? Textbook slave morality. The slave says, "Tell me I'm good. Approve of me. Validate my existence." The master says, "I determine what's good. I set the standards. I define my own worth." And here's the twist that nobody tells you. Women aren't attracted to slaves. Even if you're the nicest slave, even if you're the most attentive slave, even if you do everything right within the slave framework, biology doesn't reward slavery with attraction. It rewards it with contempt. Not conscious contempt, but a deep, primal sense of, this man is beneath me, that she can't even articulate. She just knows something feels off. So what do you do instead? How do you break free from this pattern that's been destroying your relationships and eating away at your self-respect? First, you need to understand something fundamental. You were not put on this earth to be validated by women. You were put here to build something, to create something, to become someone. And female validation is a byproduct of that process, not the goal, not the measure of success. A pleasant side effect that sometimes shows up when you're busy doing important work. The men who get the most validation from women are the men who need it the least, because they're too busy building empires to notice. Here's a practical framework. Starting today, I want you to implement what I call the internal validation protocol. Every time you feel the urge to seek her approval, stop and ask yourself 3 questions. Question 1, am I proud of this decision? Not, is she going to be proud? Are you proud? If you're going to the gym, working on your business, spending time with your friends, pursuing a hobby, whatever it is, are you proud of the choice you're making? If the answer is yes, that's all the validation you need. Move forward. Question 2, does this align with my mission? Every man needs a mission, a purpose, something he's building that's bigger than any relationship. If the action you're about to take, or the decision you're making, moves you closer to that mission, it's the right move. Her opinion is irrelevant. Question 3, would I do this even if she left tomorrow? This is the killer question. If she disappeared from your life tomorrow, would you still make this choice? Would you still go to the gym? Would you still work on your business? Would you still hang out with your friends? If the answer is yes, then her validation is not required. You're acting from your own frame, from your own values. That's power. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually implement this. Because I'm not going to lie to you. At first, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to have that urge to explain yourself, to seek approval, to make sure she's okay with your choices. And you're going to have to consciously override that programming. But here's what's going to happen. The first time you make a decision without seeking her input, without needing her validation, without explaining yourself, you're going to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Self-respect. And she's going to feel something too. Confusion. Because you just changed the dynamic. You just stopped being predictable. You just demonstrated that you have a life, a purpose, a mission that exists independently of her approval. And that confusion? It creates something powerful. Curiosity. Women are attracted to mystery, to uncertainty, to men they haven't completely figured out yet. And when you stop seeking validation, you become mysterious again. She starts wondering, why isn't he checking in? Why isn't he asking what I think? Is he okay? Is he losing interest? And now her brain is doing what your brain used to do. She's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering where she stands. You just flipped the script. Not through manipulation, not through games, but through genuine self-containment. Through actually becoming a man who doesn't need external validation because his internal compass is so strong. Let me give you a real example of how this plays out. You decide to take a weekend trip with your friends. Old you would have asked, "Is it okay if I go away this weekend? I know we had plans, but the guys really want to do this trip, and I haven't seen them in a while, and..." Stop. New you says, "I'm going on a trip with the guys this weekend. I'll be back Sunday night." Not asking, informing, not seeking permission, stating a fact. And if she has a problem with it, that's her problem to manage, not yours to fix by abandoning your plans. You make your decision, you communicate it, and you follow through. That's masculine frame control. That's what Machiavelli meant when he talked about projecting strength. You're not being rude. You're not being inconsiderate. You're being a man with a life that doesn't revolve around female approval.
Here's another one. She asks, "Do you think I'm pretty?" Old you would jump all over this. "Oh my God, yes, you're so beautiful. You're the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. I love everything about you." Desperate. Seeking validation by giving validation, hoping she'll return the favor. Knew you? Yeah, that's it. One word. Because you're not trying to use compliments as currency to buy her approval. You're stating a fact and moving on. And watch what happens. She'll push. Just, yeah? And you stay calm. Yeah, you're attractive. I wouldn't be with you if you weren't. Direct. Honest. No over-the-top performance. No dancing monkey routine. Just calm, grounded truth. That's the energy of a man who knows his value and doesn't need to prove anything. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, but isn't this selfish? Aren't relationships about compromise? About caring what the other person thinks? And here's where we need to make a critical distinction. There's a difference between considering someone's feelings and requiring their validation. You can care about her. You can take her feelings into account. But the moment you need her approval to make decisions about your own life, you've crossed from partnership into codependency. Healthy relationships are two independent people choosing to build something together. Unhealthy relationships are two half people trying to become whole by merging. You're not supposed to complete each other. You're supposed to complement each other. Big difference. Nietzsche said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." And in your relationships, she is the tribe. She represents social pressure, expectations, the need to conform. And you're the individual, fighting to maintain your autonomy, your purpose,
your identity. And this isn't a battle against her, it's a battle for yourself. The moment you surrender that battle, the moment you let the tribe overwhelm the individual, you stop being attractive. You stop being interesting. You become what Nietzsche called the last man. The comfortable, safe, boring man who wants nothing more than to be approved of. And the last man? He doesn't inspire desire. He inspires pity. Here's what most men don't understand about women. They don't want to be your mother. They don't want to be your therapist. They don't want to be the person you need approval from before making every decision. What they want is to be with a man who's going somewhere, a man with a mission, a man who would continue building his empire, whether she was there or not. Because that man, he's not a burden. He's not needy. He's not constantly requiring emotional management. He's exciting. He's dangerous. He's unpredictable. And that creates the one thing that keeps relationships alive long term. Tension. Good tension. The kind that comes from not knowing if you've fully captured someone who doesn't need to be captured. Let me tell you what happens in the long run when you stop seeking validation. First, weak relationships end. And that's good, because they were draining you anyway. The women who were with you because you were easy to control, because you were constantly seeking approval, because you were manageable, those women leave. And you should celebrate that. Because those weren't relationships. Those were transactions where you traded your dignity for companionship. Second, you attract different women. Women who respect strength. Women who are turned on by independence. Women who don't want a man they can dominate. And third, you become the man you were supposed to be before you learned that seeking validation was a survival strategy. Because let's talk about where this pattern started. You weren't born seeking female validation. As a boy, you had dreams, ambitions, curiosities that had nothing to do with female approval. But somewhere along the way, you learned that being agreeable, being nice, seeking approval, got you positive attention. From your mother, from teachers, from society. You learned that the way to be loved was to be pleasing. And that programming ran deep. So deep that now, as a grown man, you're still running that software. Still trying to be pleasing. Still trying to get that gold star from the authority figure. Except now the authority figure is your girlfriend or wife. And that dynamic? It kills attraction. Because she doesn't want to be your mother. And you don't want to be her child. But that's the relationship you've created through constant validation seeking. Breaking this pattern requires something brutal: self-honesty. You need to look at your behavior and admit, I've been seeking validation because I don't believe I'm enough on my own. That's hard. That's painful. But it's necessary. Because you can't fix a problem you won't acknowledge. And once you acknowledge it, once you see it clearly, you can start to rebuild. You can start to generate your own sense of worth from your own accomplishments, your own values, your own standards. Not from her reactions, not from her approval, from you. Here's your homework. And I'm serious about this. For the next 30 days, you're going to implement a complete validation detox. No asking her how she feels about your decisions. No seeking her approval before making plans. No explaining yourself unless directly asked. And even then, keep it brief. No fishing for compliments. No checking in to see if she's mad. Complete radio silence on the validation frequency. And instead, you're going to focus entirely on your mission, your work, your fitness, your friendships, your hobbies, your growth. And you're going to make decisions based on one criterion only. Does this move me closer to who I want to become? That's it. Her opinion doesn't factor in. and watch what happens. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how she starts seeking your validation. Watch how attraction returns because you've reclaimed your masculine frame. Machiavelli's final lesson on power is this: it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Now, I'm not telling you to make her fear you, but replace fear with respect. It is better to be respected than validated, because respect comes from strength. Validation comes from weakness, and a woman might validate a weak man out of pity or manipulation, but she'll only respect a strong man. And respect, that's what creates lasting attraction. That's what builds relationships that don't fall apart the moment life gets hard. That's what separates the men she settles for from the men she can't stop thinking about. So here's the truth you need to accept. You will never be happy seeking validation from women. Because even when you get it, it won't be enough. You'll need more. Another compliment, another approval, another confirmation that you're okay. It's an addiction that can never be satisfied externally. The only way out is to stop seeking it entirely. To build such a strong sense of self, such a clear mission, such an unshakable frame, that external validation becomes irrelevant. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're grounded. You know who you are. You know where you're going. And anyone who wants to join you on that journey is welcome. But you're going either way. That's the energy that changes everything. That's the mindset that breaks the slavery. That's the man women actually want. Not the man seeking approval. The man who doesn't need it. Be that man. Starting today. Right now. This moment. Stop seeking her validation. And start building your empire. Everything else will follow.